Pine Ridge, Pennsylvania. "God damn it!" Nick cursed as he hung up the phone. "Nick!" His voice bellowed out clearly from his office, easily heard by the mechanics at work in the 6-bay garage. Nicki Milligan received sympathetic looks from the others as he put down the wrench and wiped his hands carelessly on his coveralls. "Yeah, boss," the younger man said, poking his head through the open doorway. There was only a slight hint of cockiness in his tone, a huge improvement from the mountain-sized chip he had sported only a few months ago when Sean decided to take a chance on his sorry ass. Deep down, Sean sensed Nick was a decent enough guy who'd had a lot of bad breaks. According to his application, Nick was pushing 24 chronologically, only a scant few years less than Sean. But there was something about Nick that made Sean think of him more as a kid. Maybe it was the way he moved, or the way he smiled, though his smiles came few and far between. Or maybe it was his inability to respond well to authority. Nick simply hadn't grown up yet, but there was potential. This garage was probably his last chance before he ended up as a permanent guest of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania penal system. That made Sean push even harder, because he really wanted the kid to make it. Once you got past the attitude, Nick was a likable guy, not to mention an excellent mechanic. He had a real future ahead of him. If he could keep his head out of his ass, that was. "Why isn't Mr. Thompson's Benz finished yet?" Sean was proud of himself. He kept his voice even and non-accusatory. His sister-in-law, Taryn, told him he had a tendency to yell first and ask questions later. That, she'd explained, was probably why he'd gone through 4 mechanics in the last 3 months. As much as he liked Taryn, Sean disagreed with her assessment, though arguably they shared the same kick-ass temperament. And while he was more than ready to recognize her innate tendency to act first and ask questions later, he failed to see how that applied to him. In contrast, he was more apt to cite blatant incompetence and attitude problems rather than what Taryn had dubbed his unreasonably high expectations, but conceded, somewhat reluctantly, that Taryn might have a valid point about his quick temper. Sean saw the tick in Nick's jaw, caught the slight narrowing of the eyes. "Don't go there, kid," Sean thought. Every eye in the place was on them. "Don't make me make an example out of you." Sean didn't give a damn what the rest of the guys thought. This exercise was intended for Nick and Nick alone. If the kid was ever going to make anything of himself, he had to learn how to handle shit without losing his temper or mouthing off. Nick had guts, smarts, and some mad skills with cars. Now he just needed the self-control and the maturity to take it to the next level. Self-control was something Sean mastered in. For all intents and purposes, he was the 27-year-old owner and chief mechanic of Callaghan Auto in the small northeastern Pennsylvania town of Pine Ridge. Nestled among the mountains, it was a quiet, peaceful community that he and his family called home. He was also a former SEAL, just like his father and 6 brothers. What most people didn't know was that once their traditional 6-year commitments to the SEALs had been completed, they didn't stop serving. The family patriarch, Jack Callaghan, had formed an elite team of his own. Technically, their special little group did not exist. Realistically, they were called upon frequently to handle situations accountable agencies couldn't touch. They were a team of ghosts, non-existent to all but a few very highly placed believers. There was a lot of freedom, they found, in not having to answer to anyone except themselves. And sometimes, the end really did justify the means. His current problem, however, had nothing to do with terrorists, political madmen, or wealthy puppet masters with no regard for the sanctity of human life and liberty, and everything to do with the kid teetering on the edge of making something of himself and pissing away his last chance. Shane, his twin, was so much better at this kind of shit. Especially when Sean couldn't shake the nagging sense of unease making him restless. It had started a couple of days earlier and had been building since. The last thing he wanted to deal with in his heightened sense of awareness was unhappy customers or ineffectual employees. Attitude problem.